When we face difficult moments, those times when everything feels like it's collapsing around us, it's natural to focus on the immediate problem. We obsess over the what, the challenge in front of us, and the how, the strategies we might use to get through it. But rarely do we pause and ask the most important question: why? Why are we doing this in the first place? Why did we start this journey? Why is it worth enduring this hardship? Understanding your why is what keeps you anchored when everything else feels like it's spiraling out of control. It's the deeper purpose that transcends the short-term discomfort and reminds you that there's something bigger at stake. Without a clear why, we drift, we lose focus, and when the going gets tough, without a purpose tethering us, we give up. Think about people who run marathons. It's not the 26.2 miles that carry them across the finish line, it's their why. Maybe it's to prove to themselves they can do it. Maybe it's to honor a loved one. Maybe it's for a cause bigger than themselves, but when they hit that wall around mile 20, the moment when every part of their body screams to stop, it's not their legs that push them forward, it's their purpose. The same principle applies to every hard situation in life, whether it's building a business, pursuing a dream, or surviving personal struggles. If the only reason you're pushing through is for the result, the what, then the first sign of difficulty will make you question whether it's worth it. But if you're driven by a compelling why, then the struggle becomes part of the story, not the end of it. Companies that thrive in difficult markets are the ones with a strong sense of purpose. It's not just about profits or products. It's about why they exist in the first place. Customers and employees alike gravitate toward organizations that stand for something bigger than just making money. When times get hard, it's that core belief that keeps them going. On a personal level, finding your why gives you resilience. It shifts your focus from "I have to get through this" to "I must get through this because it matters." It transforms pain into meaning. It turns obstacles into steps. But discovering your why isn't always easy. It requires honesty and introspection. It means asking tough questions and being willing to dig deep. It's not about what others expect from you or what looks good on paper. It's about what truly moves you. What makes you feel alive, what gives your efforts meaning, even when no one else is watching. In moments of struggle, people often ask, "How can I get through this?" But the better question is, why must I get through this? Because when you have a strong enough why, the how reveals itself. The path becomes clearer. Your energy refocuses. You stop fighting just to survive and start fighting for something that matters. We're raised in a world that loves to define success and failure in black and white terms. From an early age, we're told to strive to be the best, to win, to come out on top. We compete for grades, jobs, recognition, and approval. The problem is this mindset works well in finite games, sports, board games, contests, where there are clear rules, defined players, and an obvious endpoint. But life isn't a finite game. In a finite game, like soccer or chess, there's a clear beginning, middle, and end. There are winners and losers. The rules are agreed upon, and when the clock runs out or the final move is made, the game is over. Everyone shakes hands, congratulates the victor, and moves on. But life doesn't have those neat boundaries. There's no finish line where someone declares, "You've won at life." There are no official referees, no agreed-upon rules that everyone follows, and no set of players that stay the same. Life is an infinite game. The goal isn't to win, it's to keep playing. When we apply a finite mindset to an infinite game, that's when problems arise. People start comparing themselves to others, using someone else's timeline as a measuring stick for their own success. We look at someone else's career, relationships, or achievements and think, "I'm behind," or "I'm not doing enough." But here's the truth. There is no behind in an infinite game. There's just where you are and where you're going. The same goes for businesses. Companies that play with a finite mindset focus on quarterly earnings, beating competitors, or being number one in their market. But the most successful and enduring organizations aren't obsessed with beating others. They're obsessed with staying in the game. They focus on innovation, purpose, and long-term impact. Their goal isn't to win the market, it's to serve it better over time. Think about relationships. A marriage isn't a finite game you can win if you approach it with a scorekeeping mentality: who's right, who did more, who said the last kind word. You're missing the point. Healthy relationships thrive when both people focus on nurturing the bond over time, not on winning arguments or being right. This mindset shift applies deeply to how we handle difficult times. If you see life as a finite game, then setbacks feel like losses. Failures feel like the end. But in an infinite game, a setback is just part of the process. It's not the end of the story, it's just a chapter. You realize that surviving tough moments isn't about winning over them, it's about staying in the game, continuing to show up and moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. The infinite game invites us to stop obsessing over short-term victories and focus on the bigger picture. It asks us to play not just for ourselves, but for the players who will come after us. In careers, it means mentoring others, building legacies, and contributing to something that lasts beyond our tenure. In life, it means making choices that don't just benefit us in the moment, but serve our future selves and the people around us. When you embrace the infinite game, your perspective changes. Failure doesn't sting as much because it's not the end. It's just a lesson. Success isn't a final destination. It's a moment to celebrate before moving forward again. The ups and downs stop feeling like wins and losses and start feeling like the natural rhythm of a journey without a finish line. This approach brings freedom. You no longer have to rush to hit arbitrary milestones or compare your path to someone else's. You're not trying to beat anyone, you're just trying to grow, evolve, and keep playing. You focus more on how you play the game, your integrity, your passion, your purpose, than whether or not you're winning. The infinite game is about endurance. It's about resilience. It's about knowing that the goal isn't to cross a finish line, but to stay in motion, to keep showing up, and to continue contributing even when it feels hard, especially when it feels hard. Leadership isn't about titles, positions, or the corner office. It's not about authority or who's in charge. At its core, leadership is about responsibility. It's about the willingness to step forward, especially when the path ahead is uncertain, and say, I'll go first. Going first doesn't mean you have all the answers. In fact, great leaders often step forward precisely when they don't know what comes next. It's about having the courage to take the initial step into the unknown, to pave the way so that others feel safe to follow. In difficult moments, when teams are stressed, when families are struggling, when communities are shaken, it's the person who stands up first that sets the tone for everyone else. This principle starts with self-leadership. Before you can inspire others, you have to lead yourself. And that's often the hardest part. It means being honest with yourself about your fears and doubts, while still choosing to move forward. It means recognizing that in moments of struggle, people around you are watching, not for perfection, but for permission. Permission to be vulnerable, to be human, and to keep going. Imagine you're on a plane and the captain comes over the intercom, their voice calm and confident even during turbulence. You know they can't control the weather outside, but their composure gives you reassurance. You feel safer because they've set the tone. That's what leaders do. They don't eliminate uncertainty, but they help others feel stable within it. But leadership isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's not about blind optimism or fake smiles. It's about honesty paired with hope, saying, this is hard, I'm scared too, but we're going to figure it out together. That kind of vulnerability doesn't make a leader weak. It makes them relatable. It builds trust. And trust is the foundation of any strong team or community. In the toughest moments, leaders go first by showing courage. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite it. It's standing up in a room full of uncertainty and saying, I don't know exactly how this will turn out, but I'm willing to lead us forward. That first step might be shaky, but it invites others to step forward too. Going first also means setting the emotional tone. Emotions are contagious, and leaders are the primary carriers. If a leader walks into a room full of stress and chaos with calm energy, that calm ripples through the group. On the other hand, if a leader reacts with panic or anger, that too spreads quickly. In challenging times, people look to leaders to model how to respond, not just what to do, but how to be. It also means leading by example. You can't expect others to work hard if you're not willing to roll up your sleeves. You can't ask for honesty if you're not willing to be transparent. People don't follow words. They follow actions. They watch what you do more than what you say. And when they see a leader who's willing to do the hard work, who shows integrity, who admits mistakes, that earns respect. That inspires others to rise to the occasion. In many ways, going first is about creating psychological safety, the space where people feel safe to speak up, to share ideas, to take risks, and even to fail. When a leader goes first by admitting, I made a mistake, it gives everyone else permission to be honest too. It breaks down the walls of perfectionism and allows for real growth and innovation. But leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or team managers. It happens everywhere, on playgrounds, in families, in friendships, in communities. Anytime you choose to step forward and take responsibility, you're leading. When you're the first to apologize after an argument, when you're the first to offer help without being asked, when you're the first to speak up for what's right, that's leadership. Going first is also about taking the emotional hits so others don't have to. In times of crisis, great leaders absorb some of the stress so their teams can focus on their work. It's like a parent shielding their child from the harshest parts of the world while still teaching them how to navigate it. It's about creating a space where others can thrive, even when the circumstances are challenging. But here's the paradox. When leaders go first, they're not just helping others, they're helping themselves too. Because leadership isn't a burden, it's a privilege. It's the opportunity to create positive change, to impact lives, and to leave things better than you found them. And that sense of purpose can be the very thing that gives you strength when you need it most. When you step forward first, you're not just setting a path, you're setting a standard. You're showing others that even in the hardest moments, it's possible to move forward with courage, compassion, and integrity. And in doing so, you make it easier for everyone else to follow. At our core, human beings are social creatures. From the earliest days of our existence, survival wasn't just about individual strength or intelligence, it was about connection. We formed tribes, families, and communities, not just for companionship, but for protection and support. Belonging wasn't a luxury, it was essential to survival. And while we may no longer face the same physical dangers our ancestors did, the need for belonging is just as powerful today. The power of belonging isn't just about being around people. It's about feeling seen, heard, and valued. It's about knowing that you're part of something bigger than yourself, that there's a group of people who care about you, who have your back, and who will stand by you even when things get tough. That sense of connection provides an anchor during life's storms. When we struggle, whether it's through personal hardships, professional setbacks, or emotional challenges, our instinct is often to retreat. We isolate ourselves, believing that our pain is ours alone to bear. We fear being a burden, showing weakness, or being judged. But it's in those very moments, when we feel most alone, that we need connection the most. Belonging reminds us that it's okay to not be okay. It tells us that we don't have to carry our burdens in silence. When someone reaches out with empathy and understanding, it has the power to lift even the heaviest emotional weights. It's not about someone solving your problems. It's about knowing you don't have to face them alone. Think about the moments in your life when you felt truly supported. Maybe it was a friend who sat with you in silence during a hard time, a mentor who believed in you when you doubted yourself, or a community that rallied around you in a moment of crisis. Those connections don't erase the pain, but they make it bearable. They give you the strength to keep going. In organizations, the power of belonging can be transformative. Workplaces that foster genuine connection, where people feel safe to be themselves, see higher engagement, creativity, and loyalty. It's not about superficial team-building exercises or forced camaraderie. It's about creating an environment where people feel valued, not just for what they do, but for who they are. When people feel like they belong, they bring their best selves to the table. They take risks, share ideas, and support one another. Belonging also plays a crucial role in leadership. The best leaders don't create distance between themselves and their team. They break down barriers, fostering trust and connection. They create spaces where people feel safe to speak up, to challenge ideas, and to admit when they're struggling. A leader who makes people feel like they belong isn't just leading, they're building a community. But belonging isn't something that happens by accident. It requires intention. It requires vulnerability. It means being willing to show up authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. It means reaching out when you see someone struggling, even if you're not sure what to say. It's in the small gestures, a kind word, an invitation to lunch, a simple "how are you really doing?" that belonging is built. And here's the beautiful paradox of belonging. The more we show up for others, the more connected we feel ourselves. When you offer support to someone else, you're reminded of your own place in the world, your own value. It creates a cycle of connection and care that strengthens not just individuals, but entire communities. In times of struggle, belonging can be the difference between giving up and pushing forward. When you know you're not alone, when you feel part of something bigger than yourself, it gives you resilience. It gives you hope. It reminds you that even in your darkest moments, there's light, because there are people who care. This is why cultures, communities, and families that prioritize connection are so powerful. They create safety nets that catch people when they fall. They provide spaces where vulnerability is met with compassion, not judgment. They remind us that no matter how hard life gets, we don't have to go through it alone. Belonging is also about acceptance, the deep, unconditional kind. It's not about fitting into a mold or changing who you are to be part of a group. It's about being valued for your authentic self, flaws and all. When we feel that kind of acceptance, it allows us to show up fully without fear of rejection. It frees us to be ourselves. In a world that often emphasizes competition, independence, and self-reliance, it's easy to forget the power of belonging. We're told that strength means handling things on our own, that success is an individual pursuit. But the truth is, we're stronger together. We're more resilient, more creative, and more fulfilled when we're connected. And sometimes, belonging is what saves us. In moments when we feel like we can't keep going, it's the voice of someone who says, "I'm here. I've got you." That makes all the difference. It's the gentle reminder that even when we feel isolated in our struggles, we are never truly alone. The power of belonging lies in its simplicity. It's in the connections we forge, the communities we build, and the moments we share. It's in knowing that no matter what life throws our way, there are people who will walk beside us, helping us carry the weight. And that simple truth has the power to transform not just our hardest moments, but our entire lives. We live in a world that celebrates success. We glorify the finish lines, the victories, the polished outcomes. Social media is filled with highlight reels, people achieving great things, reaching milestones, and living their best lives. But what often gets left out of the picture is the part that matters most: the struggle. Struggle is uncomfortable, it's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. It challenges us in ways we never expected and forces us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. And yet, it's in those exact moments, when we're stretched beyond what we thought was possible, that real growth happens. Think about it. Nothing worthwhile comes without effort. Muscles only grow when they're put under tension. Diamonds form under immense pressure. Trees grow stronger when they're forced to withstand wind and storms. The same is true for people. Growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when we're pushed, when we're challenged, when we struggle. But here's the thing. Most of us are conditioned to avoid struggle. We're taught to seek comfort, to take the easier path, to minimize friction wherever possible. And while there's nothing wrong with wanting stability or peace, avoiding struggle altogether robs us of the very experiences that shape us the most. When we embrace the struggle, we tap into a deeper well of resilience and strength that we didn't even know we had. We learn things about ourselves that comfort could never teach. We discover how much we're truly capable of, not because we had it easy, but because we made it through the hard stuff. Struggle teaches patience. In a world of instant gratification, we often expect results quickly. But real, meaningful change takes time. It's like planting a seed. You can't rush its growth. It needs to struggle through the soil, to reach for the sunlight, to weather the elements before it becomes a strong, thriving plant. Our personal growth follows the same process. It requires time, effort, and yes, struggle. Embracing the struggle also builds character. It teaches humility, empathy, and gratitude. When you've been through hard times, you understand what it feels like to struggle, and that makes you more compassionate toward others. You're less quick to judge, more willing to lend a hand, and more grateful for the moments of peace and joy when they come. Consider some of the most inspiring people you know or have heard of: leaders, innovators, artists, activists. Almost all of them have faced significant struggles. They've failed, fallen, and hit rock bottom at some point. But instead of letting those moments define them, they used them as fuel. They embraced the struggle, learned from it, and came out stronger on the other side. But embracing the struggle isn't about glorifying pain or seeking out hardship for the sake of it. It's about shifting your mindset. It's about recognizing that struggle is a natural, necessary part of growth, not something to fear or avoid, but something to lean into. It's understanding that the discomfort you feel isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's a sign that you're growing. When you face a challenge and think, "This is too hard, I can't do it," that's the moment where growth is right around the corner. It's like hitting the wall during a marathon, the point where your body screams for you to stop. But if you push through that wall, you find a second wind. You realize you're capable of more than you thought. Struggle also has a way of clarifying what really matters. When things fall apart, we're forced to confront our values, priorities, and beliefs. We see what's truly important and what was just noise. Struggle strips away the superficial and brings us face to face with our core. And from that clarity, we can rebuild stronger, wiser, and more aligned with who we really are. In leadership, embracing the struggle is essential. Great leaders aren't the ones who avoid challenges. They're the ones who run toward them. They see struggle not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to grow, to innovate, and to strengthen their teams. They model resilience for others, showing that it's okay to face difficulties head on, to admit when things are hard, and to keep pushing forward anyway. In personal relationships, struggle can deepen bonds. Facing hardships together, whether in friendships, families, or partnerships, creates a sense of connection and trust that can't be built through easy times alone. It's in the struggles that we see each other's vulnerabilities, strengths, and true character. It's where real intimacy and trust are formed. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of embracing the struggle is what it does for our sense of self. Every time we face a challenge and come out the other side, we rewrite our own narrative. We go from, I'm not strong enough, to, I did that. I survived that. I grew from that. And each time, our confidence grows. We begin to trust ourselves more deeply, knowing that no matter what life throws our way, we have what it takes to get through it. Struggle also teaches us the value of perseverance. It shows us that success isn't about talent alone. It's about grit. It's about showing up even when it's hard. It's about taking the next step even when you're tired and unsure. It's about believing that growth is happening even when you can't see it yet. And here's the irony. The struggles we face often become the very stories that inspire others. When you share your journey, your challenges, your failures, your growth, you give others permission to embrace their own struggles. You remind them that they're not alone, that struggle is part of the process, and that growth is always possible. Embracing the struggle isn't easy. It takes courage, resilience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But it's in those exact moments, the messy, painful, challenging ones, that the most profound growth happens. It's where we become stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to ourselves and others. It's where we transform. Optimism is often misunderstood. People sometimes see it as naive, as if it means ignoring reality, pretending everything is fine when it's clearly not. The phrase rose-colored glasses comes to mind, seeing the world in a way that filters out the hard truths, the struggles, and the pain. But that's not what true optimism is. Real optimism isn't blind. It's not about ignoring the difficulties or challenges in front of you. It's about choosing to see the bigger picture despite them. At its core, optimism is a decision. It's the conscious choice to believe that no matter how tough things are right now, there's something better on the horizon. It doesn't deny the existence of problems, it simply refuses to be defined by them. Optimism acknowledges the struggle, the setbacks, the moments when things don't go as planned, and still chooses to believe in possibility. Think of the people you admire most, the leaders, innovators, creators, and change makers. They didn't achieve what they did because they ignored challenges. They succeeded because they believed there was something greater on the other side of those challenges. Optimism is what allowed them to push forward when the odds were stacked against them. It gave them the resilience to keep going when failure seemed inevitable. Optimism isn't about wishful thinking. It's grounded in reality but focused on potential. It's the leader who acknowledges that the company is facing hard times but believes the team has the strength and creativity to turn things around. It's the person going through personal hardship who says, "This is tough, but I know I'll come out stronger." Optimism doesn't eliminate the pain or the difficulty, but it frames it within a larger context, a belief that what you're going through now is just a chapter, not the whole story. There's a profound strength in that mindset. Life will always present challenges. There will be moments of heartbreak, failure, and disappointment. But optimism allows you to see those moments not as dead ends, but as detours, unexpected routes that still lead to growth and fulfillment. It's what helps people get back up after falling, try again after failing, and keep believing when the outcome is uncertain. But optimism is more than just an internal mindset. It's contagious. When a leader approaches challenges with optimism, the team feels it. It creates an environment of possibility where people feel empowered to take risks and innovate. In contrast, when negativity takes over, it stifles creativity and morale. Optimism has the power to shift not only individual perspectives, but entire cultures. In difficult times, optimism acts as a stabilizer. It keeps us grounded while allowing us to look ahead. It says, yes, this is hard, but we've gotten through hard times before, and we will again. It connects the present struggle to a future solution. That connection is what gives people hope. And hope is essential not just for survival, but for thriving. Optimism is also about perspective. It challenges us to zoom out, to see the bigger picture. In the moment, a setback can feel overwhelming. A failed project, a lost opportunity, or a personal disappointment can seem like the end of the world. But optimism encourages us to step back and ask, how does this fit into the bigger story? Often, what feels like a failure now becomes a turning point later. That job you didn't get might lead you to an even better opportunity. That project that fell apart might teach you a lesson that makes your next one a success. Consider how many innovations and breakthroughs came from moments of failure. Post-it notes were invented by accident when a scientist was trying to create a super strong adhesive and ended up with a weak one instead. The result? One of the most useful office supplies in the world. If that scientist had only seen failure, he would have given up. But optimism allowed him to see the potential in what initially seemed like a mistake. Optimism also plays a critical role in relationships. When we approach others with an optimistic mindset, we choose to see their potential rather than just their flaws. We give people the benefit of the doubt. We believe in their capacity to grow and change. This fosters trust, empathy, and deeper connections. It creates environments, whether in families, friendships, or workplaces, where people feel safe to be themselves, to make mistakes, and to grow. And here's the paradox. Optimism doesn't make the hard stuff disappear, but it makes it more bearable. It gives us the strength to endure because we believe there's something better ahead. It's the reason people hold on in difficult times, why communities come together after disasters, why people rebuild after losing everything. Optimism is the fuel that keeps us moving forward. But like any mindset, optimism requires practice. It's not always the easiest choice, especially when life feels overwhelming. It's easier to focus on what's going wrong, to get caught up in negativity, or to spiral into worst-case scenarios. But practicing optimism means actively shifting your focus. It means asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how might this situation lead to something better? It also means surrounding yourself with optimistic people. Those who lift you up, challenge you to see the bigger picture, and remind you of your strength when you forget it. Optimism thrives in community. When one person chooses to see the possibilities, it encourages others to do the same. It creates a ripple effect, spreading hope and resilience. Optimism isn't about ignoring reality, it's about expanding it. It's about seeing both the challenges and the opportunities. It's the choice to believe that no matter how difficult things are now, there is a path forward. And that belief is what gives us the courage to take the next step, even when we can't see the whole road ahead. It's important to remember that optimism and struggle often go hand in hand. The most optimistic people aren't the ones who've had it easy. They're the ones who face difficulties and still chosen to believe in something better. They've seen the worst and still believe in the best. That kind of optimism isn't fragile, it's resilient. It's built through experience, through choosing hope again and again, even when it's hard. In many ways, optimism is an act of defiance. It says, I refuse to let this situation define me. I refuse to believe that this is all there is. It's a bold statement that no matter how dark things get, there's always a glimmer of light, and sometimes that glimmer is all you need to keep moving forward. Ultimately, optimism is a lens, a way of viewing the world that highlights not just what is, but what could be. It invites us to dream, to hope, and to believe in possibilities beyond our current circumstances. It reminds us that the story isn't over, that there are still pages to be written, and that we have the power to shape what comes next.